right, let's move on and talk about another match coming up this weekend. It's a big one for David Moyes, the West Ham, and also for Frank Lampard's Everton. Let's hear from both managers now.
Well, I think that we've seen Everton have had some really good performances. You know, they had a good win against Newcastle a few weeks ago, who Newcastle are doing well. You know, I've seen them in other games where they'll probably be disappointed with how they've played. But that's the way the Premier League is. It's really difficult to judge. The games are tight. There's very little between a lot of the teams. So I expect Everton to come here and make it really hard for us. And it will be a tough game. We're under no illusions how hard this will be. And from our point of view, we have to try and keep winning to stay up with the teams at the top half of the league. So we've got a lot to play for. We feel as if it's more about us than it is about Everton. So I'm more concentrated on what we do here at West Ham and try and focus on keeping up with the teams near the top.
I've been in this position and lots of times it's all relative. It's all relative of trying to win a league, trying to make European places, trying to get to a cup final. The expectations are the same. They just look slightly different in terms of how they sound, but the expectations on the players, on myself, as us collectively, is the same. So you just have to take that one and be. And when you mention the word character, it's one of the things that comes with being a professional footballer. So, you know, it's time to just take every game as it comes, work very hard in our prep for it, and tap into the really strong performances that we've had since I've been here, and what makes them different from the not so strong ones. And that's the consistency level we need to find. We've had 7 league games since I've been here. We have 11 to go now. So the job is firmly in our hands.
Well, it's a big match at both ends of the table. West Ham still fighting for a Champions League spot and Everton fighting for survival in the Premier League. How worried are you for Frank Lampard's side, Wes?
Yeah, I was thinking then, you know, I'm sure this must be the toughest moment for Frank's managerial career so far. You know, I'm sure when he took over, he thought, you know, on paper, I've got a great set of players, great club, you know, got funds behind me. You know, it should be probably an easy task to get them playing and climb up the table, but that's not been the case. And yeah, games are running out, and they're still in that, you know, very, very worrying position. Hopefully, the break they've had, you know, they've had a chance to work on some of the fundamentals, tactically and technically, get the team together and work hard to try and put things right. But yeah, it's not a good position to be in, and you know, like there's plenty of points to play for, there's plenty of games to go, so they only can rely on themselves to get out of this trouble.
How important do you think that break will have been for Everton to work with his players, Leanne? Because they got that huge win against Newcastle before the international break, and sometimes you can kind of hope to carry on that momentum. They've now had this break, but will it have actually done them good?
Yes and no. I think when you're on a bad run, you know, regardless of the Newcastle game, they were on a really bad run. I think, you know, it's a very difficult job for Frank Lampard because I don't think they also have that. Yes, Richarlison's good, but Calvert-Lewin's had his injuries. Obviously, that's a really good finish there from WHUEVE, but these results come few and far between. And I worry for them because people often say, I don't believe teams are too good to go down. Ask West Ham and Leeds, you know, when they're full of top talent and they've got a really, really hard run of games coming up. So, you know, West Ham is not going to be an easy game and they've got a really difficult stretch coming in. So it's going to be difficult. I still remain, you know, the 3 teams I said that below them will go down, but these 2 games in hand that they need to get as well will be difficult.
That's the thing, is they've got these 2 games in hand on Burnley, who are just below them. But when you look at Everton's run-in for the rest of the season, in terms of all the teams around them at the bottom, would you say they actually have the worst run of fixtures?
I think it is the toughest run. I do agree with Leanne in the sense that you just look at that group and you think they'll probably find a way over the teams that are beneath them because they've got enough quality, like that Iwobi goal, like Damari Gray, having Dominic Calvert-Lewin back. They've got enough quality, I think, to kind of muddle through the last few weeks of the season, make it work, reset, start again. Those other squads, I don't quite see the same. I think, if anything, Leeds are more likely to get sucked in. I do think Everton will have enough to pull through, even if the atmosphere at the club isn't great, even though there's probably quite a lot of issues with a huge lack of confidence in the squad. I think they'll do enough to pull through because simply below them that the other teams are that bad.
The worrying thing for Everton is this game is at the London Stadium and away from home this season, they've been so poorly and they've got the worst away record in the division in terms of points. Why do you think that is? What's going wrong away from home? Is that down to having the home fans spurring them on to get them results over the line when they're at Goodison?
To me, that seems like a mentality thing. You know, playing away from home is never easy, but sometimes it can work for you because the pressure's not on you. But this moment in time, they need to find a way. You know, it's going to be a difficult game against West Ham, but both teams need it, don't they, realistically, because West Ham are trying to get in the top 4, trying to be in Europe, so it'll be an interesting game. But, like, for me, you know, when Victor Pereira was linked to this job, a lot of Everton fans didn't want him, couldn't quite get my head around. I love Frank, I think he was a great player. You know, he's done well when he went to Derby, but didn't really do well at Chelsea, realistically. And I think if Tuchel didn't come in, they probably wouldn't have won the Champions League and done as well as they did. So, realistically, Frank Lampard's credentials as a manager isn't really that great, is it, realistically? But if he can keep them up, I mean, they might get away with it this year, but they won't get away with it next year, in my opinion, playing how poorly they are playing. But defensively, I think that's where their problems are. You know, Seamus Coleman's been a great servant to the club, but for me, you know, he just isn't that level anymore. So, you know, Holgate, Godfrey, they just haven't really been playing that well. And that's what's difficult, because if you can't defend well, you're going to leak goals.
So do you think Everton will stay up due to the fact there are 3 teams worse than them, rather than them doing anything to kind of get out of this?
Yeah. You know, I think Everton are, you know, lacking in confidence, lacking in self-belief. But on paper, you know, with the players they got out there, you know, probably got enough to scrape by and do enough to get a couple, you know, vital points, vital victories to keep them safe. And simply, the teams below them, teams in and around them, aren't as good. You know, they're in probably a worse position in terms of form and mentality and belief in the squad. So, yeah, on default, they'll probably survive.
Okay. Well, it's not going to be an easy away trip for them to the London Stadium, which has become a real fortress for West Ham this season. Their last game out before the international break at the London Stadium being that incredible win against Sevilla in the Europa League, where there has never been a better atmosphere in that stadium, Flo. How impressed have you been with the way David Moyes has been able to manage both this race for the top 4 and the Europa League competition as well?
Yeah, it's been really impressive, because I think start of the year, when they got through to the next stage of the Europa League, a lot of people worried about their squad depth. They had a couple of injuries, long-term absentees. The Jared Bowen injury recently is really tough, but I think he's maybe a week, a week away, and should hopefully be back for the first leg against Lyon, which would be huge. I think Lanzini was in a car crash this week, but it's not serious injury, so he shouldn't miss too much time. So as a squad, they're actually not looking too bad right now, which is what you need. Yarmolenko as well, you know, finding form at a really important time with everything that's going on for him at the moment. So the togetherness is amazing. And even we talked about servants for clubs, but someone like Mark Noble, who knows that he's coming towards the end of his playing career, but he's still doing the job that Moyes requires of him at the right time. And I know a few West Ham fans who are going to be going to Lyon for that game, and they're so excited. It's such a special moment in the club's history that I think you can almost ride off that feeling and get through. And, you know, if they finish in 4th place, that'll just be the icing on the cake, I think.
How do you think David Moyes is going to pick a team for this game? Do you think he will go as strong as he's going to go for the game against Lyon coming up on Thursday, which is actually at home the first leg? Or do you actually think he might rest a few players with that game solely in mind? Where's his priority?
Oh, it's a difficult one, because they're doing so well that no one ever dreamed that they'd be in this position, realistically. And you've got to give David Moyes a lot of credit in his second term there, because it wasn't long ago that, you know, some West Ham fans were throwing season tickets at the London Stadium. Fans weren't going to the games because they were so frustrated. But I think he will go full strength. You know, to touch on something that Flo said as well, that I couldn't believe they didn't strengthen in the transfer window, because for me, that would have been the difference between them making the top 4 and potentially winning the Europa League, because they didn't bring in the players. There was talk about them getting Zapata from Atalanta. That didn't get over the line. So I feel like them not strengthening and heavily reliant upon Bowen, who's injured, and Mikel Antonio, if they don't play or if they're not scoring, I question, because Suchek isn't scoring as much as he did last season. Where is that going to come from? But we talk about teams that are doing well. I mean, West Ham, Flo touched upon it, the confidence within the club, they just seem, and Declan Rice, I mean, come on, like, I think unbelievable. And you've got to give, again, Gareth Southgate credit for that, because I think in the Euros, nobody expected Gareth Southgate to go with Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips in the midfield, and he's been unbelievable. This year he's coming playing like a number 10, playing through balls, box to box. So, you know, we talk about Mark Noble, and I think he's been an amazing kind of, you know, person for Declan Rice to mentor him and stuff like that. So it looks good around West Ham right now.
OK, we're going to take a break now. When we return, we will preview the Monday night football and an amazing match for Patrick Vieira up against his former club, Arsenal. We'll be talking about that and heading around the grounds after the break.